So in 1946, there was a chicken farm outside of Greensboro, North Carolina. It was owned by a farmer, Thomas Lee Causby, who also lived on the property. Now, during World War II, the United States expectedly expanded its military operations, particularly around Greensboro, and their operations included an airport less than a mile away from his property, where low-flying military aircraft came in and out of the airport. When aircraft flew to the airship, they flew as low as 83 feet above the farm. For reference, that's only 18 feet above the trees that he had. That's 3 Harry Styles tall. Airplanes can be loud, and when they're 83 feet above the ground, those chickens were shook. They were poached. Ha ha ha. Vibrations and the loud noises from the aircraft resulted in the death of over 150 chickens as they flew into the walls from fright. Causby had to abandon his business. It's also noted that in the case that respondents are frequently deprived of their sleep and the family had become nervous and frightened. Under an ancient doctrine of the common law, land ownership didn't include just the ground, the infrastructure, and what lies beneath it, but also the space above the earth. Causby sued the United States, claiming that they violated his Fifth Amendment rights by taking his property rights by frequently flying low flights over his property without just compensation. He claimed they confiscated his property, the 150 plus chickens, and utilized his airspace without just compensation, thus violating the Fifth Amendment. The Court of Claims ruled that a landowner's domain includes the airspace above it and that Causby was entitled to just compensation of $2,000. The United States appealed the ruling, yes, they can do that, and the Supreme Court accepted the case. Under the Air Commerce Act of 1926, the U.S. has complete and exclusive national sovereignty in the airspace within the country. So any citizen has a public right of freedom of transit in air commerce through navigable airspace in the United States. Navigable airspace are safe altitudes where flights can occur, which is not too low to the ground but not too high. The U.S. argued that their military actions fell under this Commerce Act, especially since no physical invasion of the property occurred. Any incidental damage that occurred, like the death of the chickens, occurred as a consequence of authorized air navigation. The U.S. also argued that the landowner doesn't own the super-adjacent airspace, but the United States doesn't technically own it either, so they don't have to compensate Causby for the use of the airspace. It's in the public domain. U.S. report says that Congress has declared that the airspace is a public highway. If it were not the case, if you flew to the sky, you'd be trespassing somewhere. That just goes against common sense. The Supreme Court found that Causby's Fifth Amendment right was violated in a 5-2 opinion authored by Justice William O. Douglas. The Supreme Court stated that the idea that property ownership indefinitely expanding upward has no place in the modern world. That's what he said. They also backed the idea that the air above the minimum safe altitude of flight prescribed by the Civil Aeronautics Authority is a public highway and part of the public domain, as declared by Congress in the Air Commerce Act of 1926. However, this decision was mainly backed by the idea that flights of aircraft over private land, like his farm, which were so low and frequent as to be a direct and immediate interference with the enjoyment and use of the land. And that means flights over private land occur in airspace that's under the sovereignty of the United States, unless they're so low and frequent, they interfere with the enjoyment of the land. The court stated that for someone like you or Causby to exercise full enjoyment of the land, they must hold exclusive control of the immediate reaches of the envelope atmosphere. He doesn't have to occupy the land with infrastructure like buildings that go up to the sky. If airplanes skim the land, they are close to the ground, but they don't touch the ground, it's still usage of the land. So if they destroy the property, they need to provide compensation. Given that the flights basically skimmed Causby's land at 83 feet, the damages that occurred were subjected to compensation by the United States. Now, this wasn't a unanimous decision. Justice Black and Justice Burton dissented. Justice Black stated that this case opened a wedge for an unwarranted judicial interference with the power of Congress to develop solutions for new and vital national problems. What this means is that he believed the court's decision would set a precedent that would limit the government's ability to address pressing national issues, particularly in areas related to aviation. national defense, and establishing regulations for the common good. Notice how he said unwarranted judicial interference. This implies that their decision may have been unnecessary and probably should have been diverted to another branch of government, particularly Congress, which deals with crafting policies for complex national problems. This area of who controls the sky is very complex, especially since the court didn't give a quantitative maximum altitude that airspace is related to private property. It can be up to interpretation for each and every situation. Fun fact, some aircraft don't even have a minimum safe altitude, such as hot air balloons, helicopters, and ultralights. These issues have been addressed in later cases, such as Branning versus United States, if you're interested in checking that out. That's it for this video, though. No, the chickens did not come back to life, but hey, Causby won the case.
But now he's dead.
Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Go check out this video here about if tomatoes are a fruit or a vegetable. It's pretty interesting. Leave something in the comments below. I'll read it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.
We beat it!
We beat the kids!